The notification chimed at exactly 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday night, cutting through the silence of our empty house like a knife through butter. I was sprawled on the couch, nursing a beer and watching some mindless late-night comedy show when Melissa's text lit up my phone screen. "Back Monday, I'll explain. Love you." I stared at the message for a full 30 seconds, my brain processing what I was seeing. Back Monday? From where? She'd told me she was working late at the office, handling some crisis with the Henderson account. That was at 6 o'clock. Now it was nearly midnight, and she was talking about coming back Monday like she'd gone somewhere overnight. My name is Tom Grady, and I've been married to Melissa for 8 years. I'm an IT security consultant, which means I'm naturally suspicious of things that don't add up. And this? This definitely didn't add up. I opened Find My Phone. Yeah, we share locations, have for years. Call it trust, call it convenience, call it whatever you want. The little blue dot that represented my wife wasn't at her downtown Portland office. It wasn't at her mother's house. It wasn't anywhere I recognized. The address showed 1247 Harborview Drive, Unit 12A. A quick Google search revealed it was a luxury apartment complex downtown. Expensive. The kind of place where young professionals with too much money and too little sense went to show off. "Sure, honey," I muttered to the empty living room. And my mother's brisket didn't come from Costco. I grabbed my jacket and keys. The October rain was coming down in sheets, typical for Maine in the fall. The drive downtown took 20 minutes through empty streets, slick with water and fallen leaves. Harborview Towers rose up like a glass monument to gentrification, all modern lines and pretentious lighting. I parked across the street and looked up at the building. Unit 12A would be on the 12th floor. Most of the windows were dark, but there was light coming from what had to be the right apartment. And there, silhouetted against the warm glow, were two figures. One of them had Melissa's distinctive profile, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, the gesture she made with her hands when she was excited about something. The other figure was a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like an expensive shirt. As I watched, he moved closer to her. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and took a photo. The camera caught them perfectly framed in the window, embracing like lovers in a movie. Like people who'd done this before. Many times before. I sat in my car for another 10 minutes, rain drumming on the roof, watching my wife of 8 years cuddle with a stranger in his expensive apartment. The rational part of my brain was cataloging details, the timestamp on the photo, the clear view of both their faces, the intimate nature of their body language. The emotional part was just screaming. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Finally, I drove home. My phone buzzed twice with calls from Melissa, but I let them go to voicemail. When I got back to our house that we'd bought together, painted together, filled with 8 years of shared memories, I listened to the messages. Tom, I saw you called. Is everything okay? I'm still at the office, but I'll be home soon. Love you." The timestamp showed she'd left that message at 12:23 a.m. I looked at the photo on my phone again. Definitely her. Definitely not the office. The second message was more frantic. "Tom, please call me back. I'm worried about you. I'll be home in an hour, okay? We'll talk then." I poured myself another beer and composed a text message. "You missed a spot on your lipstick. See you Monday." I hit send and turned off my phone. Monday morning came gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I'd slept maybe 3 hours, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how long this had been going on. The signs were all there now that I was looking for them. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls she'd take in the other room, The new clothes and perfume she claimed were for client meetings. My phone had 17 missed calls from Melissa and 12 text messages. I scrolled through them over coffee, each one more desperate than the last. Tom, where are you? Your car's here, but you're not answering. Please, I can explain everything. Just give me a chance. I know you're upset, but this isn't what it looks like. Tom, I'm scared. Please just talk to me. The last one, sent at 6:47 a.m. I'm going to stay at Carla's until we can talk properly. I'll come by tonight. I love you. Carla. Her best friend since college, the one who always covered for her when she wanted to go out drinking without me, the one who'd probably known about this affair from the beginning. I was still staring at my phone when it rang. Unknown number. Tom, this is Carla. We need to talk. Do we? I kept my voice level, professional, because I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you're going to tell me. Melissa is at my house and she's a mess. She says you're acting crazy, that you accused her of something terrible. Did I? I don't remember accusing her of anything. I just mentioned her lipstick needed touching up. There was a pause. Look, I don't know what you think you saw, but Melissa was with me last night. We were at her mother's house, helping with the estate paperwork. Her mom's been sick, you know that. Funny thing about lies, Carla. They're like a house of cards. Pull out one and the whole thing comes tumbling down. What's that supposed to mean? It means her mother died 3 years ago. We went to the funeral together, remember? You were there. The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Finally. Tom, I think you need help. Professional help. Melissa is worried about you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Tell Melissa I said this. Fine, my lawyer enjoys tales like this. I hung up and called my brother Ed. Ed Grady is 2 years older than me and about twice as cynical. Ex-Marine, currently works as a contractor and has exactly 0 patience for people who lie to his little brother. He answered on the second ring. Tommy, what's wrong? You sound like someone pissed in your cornflakes. Melissa's cheating on me. Shit. You sure? I've got photos. Okay. What do you need? This is why I love my brother. No questions about whether I was imagining things. No suggestions that maybe there was an innocent explanation. Just straight to business. I need help gathering evidence, and I need someone to keep me from doing something stupid. I'll be over in an hour. Don't do anything until I get there. While I waited for Ed, I did what I do best. I dug into the digital evidence. Melissa and I shared a cloud storage account for photos and documents. She'd been careful to delete things from her phone, but she'd forgotten about the automatic backups. What I found made me sick to my stomach. Photos going back 6 months. Melissa and a man I now recognized as Greg Sanderson. I'd looked him up on LinkedIn after getting his address. Real estate developer, owned 6 properties around Portland, drove a BMW that probably cost more than I made in a year. The photos started innocent enough. Coffee dates, lunch meetings. But they progressed quickly to hotel rooms and intimate dinners. And the text messages. Christ, the text messages. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Tom's working late tonight, come over at 8. I'm so wet thinking about you. When are you going to leave him like you promised? That last one hit me like a physical blow. Leave him like you promised. So this wasn't just an affair. This was an exit strategy. I was still scrolling through the evidence when Ed arrived, letting himself in through the back door like he had since we were kids. Jesus, Tommy, you look like hell. Feel worse. I showed him the phone. Take a look. Ed scrolled through the photos and messages, his expression getting darker with each swipe. When he finished, he set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. Okay, so she's a cheating bitch, and he's a piece of shit. What's the plan? I don't know yet. I've never done this before. Well, I have. Caught my ex-wife with her yoga instructor. You want my advice? I nodded. Document everything. Don't let emotion drive your decisions, and make sure when you hit back, you hit hard enough that they don't get up for round 2. We spent the next 2 hours organizing evidence. Screenshots of every message, copies of every photo, a detailed timeline of Melissa's lies and Greg's involvement. By the time we were done, I had enough proof to bury both of them in divorce court. But that didn't feel like enough. Not nearly enough. There's something else, I told Ed, pulling up Greg's social media profiles. Look at this guy. He's got money, sure, but he's also got an ego the size of Texas. Look at these posts. Greg's Instagram was a monument to narcissism. Photos of his car, his apartment, expensive meals, always with captions about how successful he was. The kind of guy who needed everyone to know how important he thought he was. So guys like this, their image is everything. Take away the image, and you take away everything that matters to them. Ed grinned. It wasn't a nice expression. Now you're talking my language. That evening, Melissa came home. I heard her key in the lock at exactly 7:30, followed by the tentative sound of her heels on the hardwood floor of our entryway. Tom, are you here? I was in the living room, sitting in my usual chair with a beer and a folder full of printed evidence on the side table. I'd been practicing this conversation in my head for hours. She appeared in the doorway looking like she'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her usually perfect hair was disheveled, and she was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. The performance was almost convincing. "Thank God," she said, rushing toward me. "I was so worried when you didn't answer your phone. Carla said you called her, and you sounded upset, and I just—" "Sit down, Melissa." Something in my voice stopped her mid-sentence. She perched on the edge of the couch, hands clasped in her lap like a schoolgirl called to the principal's office. "We need to talk," I continued. "And for once in the last 6 months, I'd like you to tell me the truth." "I don't understand what you mean." I picked up the folder and pulled out the first photo, the one I'd taken last night through Greg's apartment window. I set it on the coffee table between us. Melissa went white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the blood from her face. "Tom, I can explain—" "Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain being in another man's apartment at midnight when you told me you were working late." "It's not what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like my wife of 8 years is having an affair with Greg Sanderson. It looks like she's been lying to me for months. It looks like she's been planning to leave me for him." I pulled out the printed text messages and spread them across the table like a poker hand. Melissa's eyes darted across them, and I watched her realize how much I knew. "How did you get these?" "Does it matter? The question is, how long has this been going on?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the evidence of her betrayal laid out in black and white. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes. 6 months, she whispered, "and you were planning to leave me for him." "Tom, please, it's complicated." "No, it's really not. You made a choice. You chose to betray our marriage, our vows, everything we built together. You chose to lie to me every single day for 6 months. The only complicated thing is how you thought you'd get away with it. I never meant for it to happen. It just did." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Bullshit. You don't accidentally have an affair for 6 months. You don't accidentally plan to leave your husband. You don't accidentally tell your lover you can't wait to feel him inside you again." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Tom, don't." "Don't what? Don't quote your own words back to you? Don't make you face what you've done? I made a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices. Every day for 6 months, you chose to betray me." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our neighborhood. Mrs. Keene across the street was walking her little dog, same as she did every evening at 7:45. Normal people living normal lives, not dealing with the wreckage of their marriages. "So what happens now?" Melissa asked quietly. "Now? Now you get to experience consequences." "What does that mean?" I turned back to her. "It means I'm not the same pushover you married 8 years ago. It means actions have consequences, and you're about to learn what yours are." "Tom, you're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared, because the man who would have forgiven you, Who would have gone to counseling and tried to work things out? Who would have blamed himself for not being enough for you? That man died last night when I watched you in another man's arms. I walked back to my chair and sat down, looking at her across the ruins of our marriage. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack a bag and go stay with Carla or Greg or whoever will have you. Tomorrow, I'm calling a divorce lawyer, and in the meantime, I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You can't do that. Watch me. She was crying now, real tears, not the crocodile tears from earlier. Tom, please. We can work this out. I'll end it with Greg. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't destroy my life. Your life? What about my life? What about the 8 years I gave you? What about the trust you shattered, the love you threw away? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Melissa. Sorry doesn't undo 6 months of lies and betrayal. Sorry is just a word people say when they get caught. I stood up again. Pack your things. I want you out of here tonight. Where am I supposed to go? I really don't care. Call Greg. I'm sure he'll be happy to comfort you. She sat there for another minute, crying and probably hoping I'd change my mind. When it became clear that wasn't happening, she went upstairs to pack. I could hear her moving around up there, opening drawers and closets, probably trying to figure out how much she could take without it looking like theft. 20 minutes later, she came back down with 2 suitcases and her laptop bag. Tom, I know you hate me right now, but I need you to know that I did love you. I do love you. No, you don't. People who love each other don't do what you did. They don't lie and cheat and plan to abandon their spouse for someone with more money. It wasn't about money. Wasn't it? Greg drives a BMW and lives in a penthouse. I drive a Honda and live in a 3-bedroom ranch. You think I'm stupid, Melissa, but I'm not blind. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, then closed it again. What was there to say? I'll call you tomorrow, she said finally. Don't bother. Have your lawyer call mine. After she left, I sat in the quiet house for a long time, processing what had just happened. 8 years of marriage, over in one conversation. It should have felt more dramatic, more final. Instead, it just felt empty. I called Ed. How'd it go? She's gone, admitted to everything. You okay? I will be, once I'm done making them both pay for what they did. What's the plan? I looked at Greg's address, still written on the notepad by my phone. Ever hear of psychological warfare, Ed? I like where this is going. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. The constant low-level anxiety I'd been carrying around, wondering why Melissa seemed distant, why she was always working late, why she'd lost interest in our life together, was gone. Now I knew why, and knowledge is power. I made coffee and started planning. Greg Sanderson thought he'd won. He'd stolen another man's wife, convinced her to leave her marriage, probably felt pretty good about himself. Men like Greg see the world as a competition, and in his mind, he'd just scored the ultimate victory. Time to show him what losing actually looked like. I started with research. Social media, public records, business filings, anything I could find about Greg and his life. The picture that emerged was exactly what I'd expected. A man who lived for appearances, whose entire self-worth was tied up in how others perceived him. He owned Sanderson Properties, a mid-sized real estate development company. Not huge, but successful enough to fund his lifestyle. He was active in local business groups, served on the board of 2 charities, and was engaged to be married to a woman named Jennifer Walsh. Wait. Engaged? I dug deeper. Sure enough, there were photos from just 3 months ago. Greg and Jennifer at some charity gala, her showing off a massive engagement ring, both of them grinning for the camera. The caption read, "Portland's newest power couple announces their engagement." So Greg wasn't just cheating with my wife. He was cheating on his fiancée with my wife. This was getting better by the minute. I called Ed. Remember what you said about hitting hard enough that they don't get up for round 2? Yeah. I found our opening. An hour later, Ed arrived with our friend Vince Kowalski. Vince owns a locksmith business and has a very flexible relationship with conventional morality. He's also the kind of guy who can get into places he's not supposed to be and leave no trace he was ever there. "Tommy!" Vince boomed, crushing me in a bear hug. "Ed tells me you need some creative problem solving." I explained the situation and showed them the evidence I'd gathered. By the time I finished, both men were grinning like wolves. "So this Greg guy thinks he's hot shit," Vince said. "Thinks he can steal another man's wife and face no consequences." That's about the size of it. And he's got a fiancée who doesn't know he's cheating. Jennifer Walsh. She's a pediatric nurse at Maine Medical Center. By all accounts, a genuinely nice person who deserves better than Greg. Ed cracked his knuckles. "So what's the plan?" Phase 1 is psychological. We're going to make Greg paranoid, make him wonder who knows what and when the other shoe is going to drop. Phase 2 is social. We're going to make sure everyone in his world knows exactly what kind of man he is. Phase 3. I smiled. Phase 3 is going to be fun. We started that night. Greg's BMW was parked in his assigned spot in the Harbor View Towers garage, gleaming under the fluorescent lights like a monument to his ego. Vince had us in and out in under 10 minutes. We didn't damage anything. That would have been too obvious, too easy to explain away. Instead, we did things that would make Greg question his sanity. We let the air out of his tires, not enough to make them flat, just enough to make the car pull to one side when he drove. We changed his Bluetooth device name to Cheater Mobile, so anyone trying to connect would see it. And we placed a small piece of fish, just a tiny bit of salmon, inside his air conditioning vent. "He'll smell it every time he turns on the AC," Vince explained as we walked back to Ed's truck. "But it's too small to find easily. He'll think something died in there." "Psychological warfare," Ed added approvingly. "Make him sweat the small stuff while we set up the big stuff." The next morning, I put Phase 2 into motion. I created a simple email account, portlandtruth2023@gmail.com, and started reaching out to people in Greg's professional and social circles. The message was simple and factual. Greg Sanderson is having an affair with a married woman named Melissa Grady. He has been lying to his fiancée Jennifer Walsh for at least 6 months. Attached, you will find photographic evidence. Do with this information what you will. I sent it to the boards of directors of both charities he served on, to his business partners, to the Portland Chamber of Commerce, and to 3 local gossip bloggers who covered the social scene. I didn't send it to Jennifer. That would come later, and it would be personal. By noon, my phone was ringing. Melissa. "Tom, what did you do?" "Good morning to you too, dear. How's life at Carla's?" "Greg got weird calls this morning. People asking him about some email. What did you do?" "I shared some information with concerned parties. Nothing that wasn't true." "You can't do this. You're trying to destroy his career." "Am I? Because I thought I was just making sure people knew the truth about who they were dealing with. Transparency in business relationships, that sort of thing." "Tom, please. You're better than this." "No, Melissa. I'm exactly this. You just never bothered to find out who you were married to. If you don't stop, You'll what? Cheat on me? Leave me for another man? Lie to my face for 6 months? Already covered that ground." She hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. "Tom Grady? This is Greg Sanderson. I think we need to talk." His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. "Good. Do we? I can't imagine what we'd have to discuss." "You know damn well what we need to discuss. This harassment has to stop." "Harassment? I haven't harassed anyone. I've simply shared some information with people who might find it relevant to their business relationships." "You sent emails to my business partners, to the charity boards I serve on." "Did I? Huh. Must have slipped my mind." "Listen to me very carefully, you pathetic little man. If you don't stop this right now, I will make your life very unpleasant. I laughed. Actually laughed. Greg, buddy, you already made my life unpleasant when you started fucking my wife. Now I'm just returning the favor. I could have you arrested for harassment. Could you? With what evidence? I haven't threatened you. I haven't damaged your property. I haven't done anything illegal. I've just shared some truthful information with interested parties. There was a long pause. What do you want? Want? I don't want anything from you, Greg. I just want you to experience the consequences of your actions. You thought you could steal another man's wife and face no repercussions. You were wrong. This isn't over. No, it's not. It's just getting started. I hung up and immediately called Vince. Phase 3? He asked. Phase 3. The beauty of a well-executed revenge plan is watching your targets make it worse for themselves. Over the next few days, Greg and Melissa did exactly that. Greg, rattled by the emails and the strange issues with his car, started acting erratically. He called the charity boards to clarify the situation, which only drew more attention to it. He had his car inspected twice, trying to find the source of the fish smell, growing more frustrated each time the mechanic found nothing wrong. Meanwhile, Melissa was staying at Carla's apartment and making increasingly desperate attempts to convince me to be reasonable. She left voicemails, sent text messages, even showed up at my office building, though security wouldn't let her upstairs. Tom, please, she said in one voicemail. I know you're hurt, but this has gone too far. Greg is talking about getting a restraining order. A restraining order? For what? Sending factual emails to business associates? Greg was more rattled than I'd hoped. On Thursday morning, I put the next phase of the plan into action. I'd been watching Jennifer Walsh's social media, learning her patterns. She worked 3 12-hour shifts at the hospital each week, had Thursday off, and usually spent it at a coffee shop called Grind Coffee on Exchange Street, grading papers for the nursing students she tutored on the side. I found her at a corner table, laptop open, stack of papers beside her, looking exactly like the kind of person who dedicates her life to helping others. She was pretty in a wholesome, natural way, the opposite of Melissa's high-maintenance glamour. Excuse me, are you Jennifer Walsh? She looked up, smiled politely. Yes? My name is Tom Grady. I think we need to talk about Greg Sanderson. Her smile faded. I'm sorry, do I know you? No, but we have something in common. We're both being lied to by the same man. I sat down across from her and pulled out my phone. I'm going to show you some photos, and I'm sorry in advance for what you're about to see, but you deserve to know the truth. 20 minutes later, Jennifer was crying quietly into a napkin while I explained everything I'd discovered about Greg's affair with my wife. She asked good questions, wanted to see the evidence multiple times, approached it like the medical professional she was, methodical, thorough, unwilling to jump to conclusions. How long? She finally asked. At least 6 months, probably longer. We've been engaged for 4 months. I'm sorry. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the photos on my phone. What are you going to do now? I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man he is, what kind of man they both are. And you want me to help. It wasn't a question. Jennifer was smarter than Greg had given her credit for. I want you to do whatever feels right to you, but if you decide you want to make a statement, I can help you make sure it gets heard. She wiped her eyes and straightened up. What did you have in mind? That evening, Jennifer called Greg and asked him to meet her at the Riverside Tavern, a popular bar downtown where Greg liked to be seen. She told him she had news about setting a wedding date. Ed, Vince, and I were already there, sitting at the bar with a clear view of the booth where they'd be sitting. The place was packed with the after-work crowd, young professionals, business people, exactly the kind of audience Greg cared about impressing. Greg arrived first, looking confident and relaxed. He'd probably convinced himself that the emails were just the desperate act of a cuckolded husband, that he could ride out the storm. He ordered an expensive whiskey and checked his phone, probably texting with Melissa. Jennifer arrived 10 minutes later, looking beautiful and composed. She kissed Greg hello, sat down across from him, and waited for him to start talking about wedding plans. "I'm so glad you called," Greg said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I've been thinking we should move the wedding up, maybe spring instead of next fall." "Really? That's interesting timing." "What do you mean?" Jennifer smiled and pulled out her phone. "Well, I was wondering how that would work with your other relationship." She turned the phone so he could see the screen. It was the photo I'd taken of him and Melissa in his apartment window. Greg went white. "Jennifer, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain having an affair with a married woman while planning our wedding." Her voice was calm, but it carried. Conversations at nearby tables stopped as people turned to listen. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like you're a lying, cheating piece of shit who proposed to me while you were fucking someone else's wife." The entire bar was listening now. Greg looked around frantically, realizing that his worst nightmare, public humiliation, was happening in real time. "Jennifer, please, let's discuss this privately." "Why? Are you embarrassed?" "You weren't embarrassed when you were telling Melissa Grady that you loved her. You weren't embarrassed when you were promising to leave me for her." She stood up and raised her voice so everyone in the bar could hear clearly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Greg Sanderson. He's a real estate developer here in Portland, and he's also a lying, cheating scumbag who's been having an affair with a married woman while engaged to me." The bar erupted. People were pulling out phones, taking pictures, recording video. Greg tried to stand up, but Jennifer wasn't done. Greg likes to think of himself as a pillar of the community. He serves on charity boards, goes to all the right social events, drives an expensive car. But what he really is a man who destroys marriages and lies to the people who love him. Greg finally managed to get to his feet. "You're crazy. You're having some kind of breakdown." "Am I? Tom, could you come over here, please?" I walked over from the bar, enjoying every second of Greg's growing panic as he realized this had been planned. "Greg, I'd like you to meet Tom Grady, Melissa's husband, the man whose wife you've been fucking for the past 6 months." Greg looked like he wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The crowd had formed a rough circle around us, everyone recording, everyone watching the show. "You son of a bitch," Greg snarled at me. "You set this up." "I didn't set anything up. I just made sure Jennifer knew the truth about the man she was engaged to marry. What she chose to do with that information was entirely up to her." "This is harassment. I'm calling the police." "Please do," Jennifer said sweetly. "I'm sure they'd be very interested in seeing all the evidence of your affair. The photos, the text messages, the hotel receipts." Greg's face went from white to red. "You have no right. I have every right. You made me look like a fool, Greg. You made me plan a wedding to a man who was cheating on me. You made me believe in a future that was built on lies." She pulled off her engagement ring and threw it at his feet. "Consider this your public breakup. I hope she was worth it." Greg bent to pick up the ring, and that's when he made his biggest mistake of the night. He grabbed Jennifer's arm. "You're not walking away from me like this." Ed was beside him in 2 seconds, his hand clamped on Greg's wrist. "Let go of the lady, now. This is none of your business." "Actually, it is. See, Tom's my brother, which makes this very much my business." Ed's grip tightened, and Greg winced. "Now, you're going to apologize to Jennifer for putting your hands on her, and then you're going to walk out of here with whatever dignity you have left." "I'm not apologizing for anything." Ed smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. Wrong answer. What happened next was beautiful in its simplicity. Ed didn't hit Greg, didn't escalate to violence. He just applied pressure to a nerve cluster in Greg's wrist, something he'd learned in the Marines, until Greg's knees buckled. "I'm sorry," Greg gasped. "I'm sorry, Jennifer." Good. Now get out. Ed released him, and Greg stumbled toward the exit, his face burning with humiliation as the entire bar watched him flee. The crowd burst into applause as the door closed behind him. Jennifer turned to me. Thank you. Thank you. That was perfect. She smiled for the first time since I'd met her. It felt pretty good. By Friday morning, videos of Greg's public humiliation were all over social media. Cheater Greg was trending locally on Twitter, and someone had created a TikTok account dedicated to posting updates about his downfall. The Portland Phoenix, a local alternative weekly, had picked up the story and was running it as a cautionary tale about social media justice. Greg's business was imploding. 2 of his major investors had pulled out after seeing the videos, citing moral concerns and reputation management. The charity boards had accepted his resignations, and the Chamber of Commerce had quietly removed him from their upcoming awards ceremony. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Melissa called me that morning, hysterical. Tom, you have to stop this. Greg's talking about leaving town. His business is falling apart. You've destroyed him. Have I? Or did he destroy himself when he decided to have an affair with a married woman? This isn't justice, it's revenge. You say that like it's a bad thing. Tom, please. I know I hurt you, but this has gone too far. Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, this is just getting started. What do you mean? I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. You'll find out soon enough. That afternoon, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. It was time for the big finish, the moment that would cement Greg's reputation as Portland's most notorious cheater. I'd learned that Greg had a standing reservation every Friday at Pacciarino, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. He used it to impress clients, potential investors, anyone he wanted to show off for. It was part of his image as a successful businessman. I called the restaurant and spoke to the manager, a guy named Tony who'd gone to high school with Ed. Tony, it's Tom Grady, Ed's brother. I need a favor. Sure, Tom. What's up? I explained the situation and what I wanted to do. Tony listened, occasionally laughing, and finally agreed to help. Greg Sanderson's been coming here for 2 years, and he's never once tipped properly. Plus, he hit on my hostess last month. Fuck that guy. At 7 o'clock, Greg arrived at Pacciarino with 2 potential investors, older men in expensive suits who clearly had money to burn. This was obviously an important dinner for him, a chance to rebuild his reputation and save his business. They were seated at Greg's usual table, prominently positioned where everyone in the restaurant could see them. Greg was in full charm mode, telling stories, ordering expensive wine, trying to convince these men that he was still a good investment despite the recent misunderstandings. That's when the entertainment began. At exactly 7:30, a singing telegram arrived. A woman in a sparkly dress carrying a microphone approached Greg's table. Excuse me, are you Greg Sanderson? Yes, but I didn't order. I have a special message for you from someone who cares about you very much. She cleared her throat and began to sing, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Greg Sanderson is a cheater. He lies to everyone he meets. He stole another man's wife while planning wedding treats. He thinks that he's important, but he's really just a fake, a lying, cheating scumbag who destroys lives for his own sake. The restaurant erupted in laughter and applause. Greg's face went through several shades of red as he realized what was happening. Stop, he hissed. Stop this right now. But the singer wasn't finished. She launched into a second verse. He drives a fancy car and lives in a fancy place, but underneath the surface he's got a lying face. So, ladies of Portland, if you see him on the street, remember Greg Sanderson is a cheater and a cheat. The entire restaurant was recording now, phones out, capturing every second of Greg's humiliation. The 2 investors looked mortified, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. As the singer finished and took a bow, a waiter appeared with a bottle of champagne. Compliments of the house, he announced loudly, for Portland's most famous cheater. Greg stood up so fast his chair fell over. We're leaving. Now. "Greg, wait," one of the investors said. "Maybe we should—" "We're leaving!" But as they headed for the exit, one more surprise was waiting. Jennifer Walsh was standing by the door, looking beautiful and composed, holding a poster-sized photo of Greg and Melissa together. "Leaving so soon, Greg? I thought you might want to sign this for your fans." The photo was the one I'd taken through his apartment window, blown up to poster size, with a caption that read, "Greg Sanderson, Portland's premier home wrecker." Greg tried to push past her, but she stepped aside at the last second, causing him to stumble into the door. The entire restaurant burst into laughter again as he fumbled with the handle, finally managing to escape into the night. The investors didn't follow him. I watched the whole thing from across the street, recording everything on my phone. It was perfect, beautiful, the complete destruction of a man who thought he was untouchable. My phone buzzed with a text from Ed. "Please tell me you got that on video. Every second of it. You beautiful bastard. That was art." Saturday morning brought the consequences. My phone was ringing non-stop. Reporters, bloggers, even a producer from a daytime talk show who wanted to book me for a segment about creative divorce revenge. I ignored most of them, but I did answer when Detective Allen called. I'd known Mike Allen for years. We'd gone to high school together, and he'd always been a straight shooter. "Tom, I need to ask you about Greg Sanderson." "What about him?" "He filed a harassment complaint. Says you've been stalking him, damaging his property, interfering with his business." "That's interesting. What evidence did he provide?" There was a pause. "Well, that's the thing. He doesn't have any actual evidence. No proof you damaged anything, no record of direct threats, nothing that would hold up in court." "Probably because I haven't done any of those things." "Tom, I've known you for 20 years. You're not the type to break the law. But I also know your wife left you for this guy, and I know you've got the skills to make his life difficult in ways that are technically legal. Mike, everything I've done has been completely above board. I shared factual information with people who had a legitimate interest in knowing it. I helped his fiancée learn the truth about the man she was planning to marry. I haven't broken any laws. I know. That's why I'm calling instead of showing up at your door with a warrant. Greg's demanding we arrest you, but there's nothing to arrest you for." "So what happens now?" "Now? Now, Greg learns that being an asshole isn't illegal, but neither is exposing assholes for what they are." After Mike hung up, I made myself coffee and sat down to read the messages that had been pouring in all morning. Most were supportive, people sharing their own stories of infidelity, praising me for standing up for myself, asking for advice on their own situations. But there were also messages from Melissa. Dozens of them, growing increasingly desperate as Greg's world collapsed around them. "Tom, Greg's business is ruined. His investors pulled out. He might have to declare bankruptcy." "Tom, please answer your phone. We need to talk." "Tom, I'm begging you. Make it stop." The last one, sent at 3 a.m. "I know you hate me, but I never wanted it to end like this. I just want to come home." Come home. After everything she'd done, everything she'd put me through, she wanted to come home. Melissa showed up on my doorstep, exhausted and desperate. She said Greg had lost everything, his business, his reputation, his fiancée, and begged me to stop. But I hadn't destroyed him. I'd just revealed the truth. When she claimed Greg wasn't only cheating with her, but with several other married women, I let her in. She told me about his trophies, the photos, the stolen items, the notebook detailing each woman's weaknesses. That night, we broke into Greg's apartment with Detective Allen and found the safe exactly where she said. Inside were dozens of photos, notes, and personal items, evidence of a calculated predator who'd turned manipulation into a lifestyle. Greg hadn't been unlucky, he'd been exposed, and standing there, surrounded by the proof of his cruelty, I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. Greg's photos showed every life he'd wrecked, not just mine. I told Detective Allen the women deserved to know. He agreed, and by morning, 3 more victims had filed charges. Within hours, the Portland Phoenix exposed Greg as the Predator of Portland. His career imploded. His name became a national disgrace. When he called, furious and broken, I told him the truth. Actions have consequences. Yours are just beginning. Melissa came to apologize, leaving me the house and divorce papers with no demands. I signed them quietly. Justice was done, but victory felt hollow. Still, when spring came, so did peace. Greg went to prison. Melissa started over. And I learned that real revenge isn't rage, it's truth, exposure, and moving on. Some people say revenge is best served cold. I say it's best served with peace of mind, and the knowledge that the guilty finally faced their consequences. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.